take over here.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
You can't do anything that's...
All right. I'll call to order the May 10th meeting of the Kenai Open Space Conservation Agency. Would you please join me in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Vice Chair Berger.
Here.
Director Jacobson. Here. Chair Skay.
Here.
Directors Bilde, La Pena, and Fox are absent.
We are expecting them at sometime during the meeting. I don't have any public comment cards at this point. We'll go to the consent calendar, which are the minutes of March 8 and April 19. All right. Okay, any discussion? Minutes stand approved. Action item 5A is solicitation of applications and designate Cosca Board Nomination Subcommittee for 2006 for the Kenai Open Space Trails Advisory Committee vacancies. Mr. Town?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the Board is aware, the Kenai Open Space Trails Advisory Committee is composed of 11 members, and each year we have approximately 3 vacancies on this committee. For the 2006 to 2009 term, we have 2 vacancies that have come up. And so at this time, staff is recommending that the board initiate the selection procedures to fill those 2 vacancies for that term, and also to appoint a nomination subcommittee, which is composed of a board director, the general manager of the Kenai Recreation and Park District, and the Cosca manager, who will serve on an as-needed basis until May 2007. Currently, that committee, I should note, is composed of Chair Skay, Tex Ward, and myself. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. Town? What's the pleasure, Mr. Jacobson?
We indicated previously that if we had many people that applied, was there a procedure whereby we could maybe select people as alternates so that they could become enmeshed in part on an alternative basis for membership and prepare themselves for subsequent selection in other years? Excuse me for my congestion.
Yes, that's correct. In fact, currently we have, as I mentioned, 11 members, but we have 2 alternates, and every year, if there are qualified people, we do designate typically 2 alternates. And as you mentioned, in many cases in the past, those alternates have served for a year in that position, and then the next year they often become full members of the committee.
I would move Mr. Jacobson to the other side of the... I would move staff recommendation A and B.
Okay. Thank you. I think any other questions, or I'm sorry, any other questions of staff or discussion?
Is that with an understanding that the chairperson would represent the board on that committee, that being Chairman Skay?
I will accept that if that is your intent. Yes, okay. Then with that understanding, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, that passes. Item 5B is authorization to accept an open space lot number 632 of tract 4963, approximately 82 acres, from the Operating Engineers Fund Incorporated. It's located north side of Lynn Road between Rancho Dos Vientos Drive and Villa Las Brisas. Mr. Town.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This lot was a required dedication as part of Tract 4963. And as the board may recall, at our last meeting, we also brought a number of parcels in this area to you for your authorization for staff to accept as open space. This is one of the larger lots in the center of the tract, and it's depicted via an aerial photograph on page 11 of your packet. And as you can see, it's due north of Villa El Cerro and between Villa Las Brisas on the east and Rancho Dos Vientos on the west. This lot is almost ready for us to take in fee title. We still have some easement issues to resolve, but all of the other physical improvements have been made. Once we take Lot 632 and the others that were authorized by your board at our last meeting, this central part of Dos Vientos Ranch will be almost entirely under public ownership. There's only another 2 smaller parcels that we still need to work on. After we take title to all of this and the other land that is already owned by the city of Dos Vientos Ranch, the only remaining areas will be the larger parcels on the north side of Borchard Road and on the west side of the ranch. So we will have made quite a number of gains in this area with this addition. So with that, I would recommend that the board authorize staff to accept open space lot 632, subject to these final resolution of items.
Questions of Mr. Tan? Mr. Berger?
Yes, 632 is well defined on the 3 maps, that which really points out that there are these other marked parcels that are not coming into the fold. Were some of those the ones you just mentioned, or are there some other plans for those?
No, those were the other ones that I just mentioned.
Okay. And does this tie into any wildlife corridor? In other words, is there I know it ties to the left here. I assume off to the right we've got a tie into more open space?
That's correct. 632 is actually part of an internal wildlife corridor within Dos Vientos Ranch that connects to via Las Brisas and over, in fact, to the final CRPD park site you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the aerial photo on page 11, and then west to these open space lots that I mentioned, and then on to the Santa Monica Mountains to the south.
Okay. Mr. Jacobson?
Yes, I don't want to overwhelm you with the request for information, but could you routinely, when we have large parcels, indicate where they interface with either an existing or proposed trail system, showing the manner in which these tracks enhance our existing open space system? Is that easily enough accomplished?
Sure. We can definitely provide that.
I would like to indicate that over the last several meetings when we've had maps such as this one here, they've been very informative and make it very clear as to this decision that we are being asked to make. And I appreciate this new system. Not that we've ever lacked information from you, it's just being presented very effectively.
Let the record show that Director Bill de la Pena has joined us.
And I would move that the board authorize staff to accept open space lot 632 on tract 4963 of 81.66 acres from the Operating Engineers Fund, Inc.
Second.
Any further discussion? I do have actually a question, Mr. Town, that I want to ask. I'm assuming that the configuration of this open space lot does accommodate no additional brush clearance, at least with the current Ventura County requirements. Are the brush clearance zones all within homeowners or other landscape district?
That's correct. If you look around the edge of it, you can see long linear parcels, and those are the field modification lots that are owned by the HOAs, the homeowners associations.
All right. Any other discussion? Director Bill de la Pena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is about the additional 630 acres. Is there a timetable as to when that will be transferred?
That's a good question. The remaining issues in those areas have to do with some trail construction, resolution of some issues related to the twin ponds on the west side of the ranch, removal of certain improvements, for instance, old ranch barbed wire and so forth. But we have provided a punch list to the owners, and they're actually very actively working through that. So I would certainly anticipate within the next 12 months that we would own that, and perhaps sooner.
Thank you.
All right. If no further discussion, let's vote on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 5C is authorization to enter into an agreement and execute easements with the Calleguas Municipal Water District for Mesa Feeder Waterline Replacement Project located 1,200 feet northeast of terminus of Osprey Avenue. Mr. Town?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item involves a potable water pipeline that is managed and owned by Cayugas Municipal Water District, and it is located in the Arroyo Conejo area. It crosses Arroyo Conejo Creek, and the underlying land is owned by Cosca. The easement for the water line was granted to Cayugas over 30 years ago, and due to erosion of this pipeline over the years, Cayugas has requested authority from Cosca to relocate a portion or the portion of the pipeline where it crosses the Arroyo Conejo Creek from its current location to about 50 feet further to the north due to erosion of the concrete encased pipeline itself. And in terms of trying to orient you a bit, there's an aerial photograph of the overall area and the Cayugas pipeline location on page 19 of your packet. And as you can see, it's southeast of the Hill Canyon Treatment Plant and between the Chappelle project to the west and the Lindmer area to the northeast. And if I can direct your attention to page 20, the next page, or Exhibit B2, it shows the area where the pipeline is located and where it will be located in general, and then a staging area for some of the construction materials to the northwest where it says staging area. And there are site photos of the water line on page 21 of your packet. And if I could direct your attention to photo B, you can see the existing encasement, how it's become eroded. The stream bank is actually, a stream bed have eroded around it so that now it's an elevated structure that impedes water flow. And so again, the project is to build a substitute water line for this portion where it crosses the creek. That would be about 50 feet to the north. Then after that's constructed, the water line would be reattached and this old section would be removed. This project has been reviewed by California Department of Fish and Game and the Army Corps of Engineers, and permit conditions have been issued by both of those agencies, and those are both included in your packet. The project, of course, includes a restoration plan and a stream bank regrading plan, which will actually increase the bank area. It will, of course, involve native plantings, willow, and so forth to replace the affected area. The affected area, I should note, is quite small. It's 0.05 acres of affected land. No oak trees or landmark trees would be affected. And the benefit to the project, not only would be, of course, maintenance of this important water supply line, but also removal of this impediment to water flow and also increased stream bank area. The schedule for this project is that the new pipeline, as you can see in the middle of page 15 of your packet, would be built in the summer of 2007, and then the new pipeline would be connected to the existing one in the winter of 2007 to 2008, and then in summer of 2008, it's planned to remove the existing pipeline. So it's may appear a ways off, but Cayugas has been actively working on this with the permitting agencies and so forth, and is ready to continue moving forward with this item before you tonight. So what staff is asking is that the board authorize us to really execute three different documents, and those are all being reviewed by staff at this time, but they include an easement relocation and reconstruction agreement, which is included in your packets as Exhibit C. And then related to that would be to grant a new permanent easement for the relocated water line and a corresponding temporary construction easement, and then accept a quitclaim deed for the portion of the water line that currently crosses the creek and will be abandoned. This authorization, I should note, is subject to final approval by the City Attorney's Office, Cosca, and the Department of Public Works, but we don't anticipate any significant issues relating to those documents. at this time. So with that, I would certainly be happy to answer any questions, and I should also note that Mr. Bob Beamer from Cayugas Municipal Water District is with us here tonight. He is a senior project manager with the district and will be the project manager for this particular project for its duration, and he is here and available for any questions that the board may have as well.
Thank you, Mr. Town. Any questions of Mr. Town or Mr. Beamer? Claudia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Town, you mentioned that there won't be any impact on city-protected landmark trees, and that this has already been reviewed by Fish and Game as well as U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Is there any wildlife habitat that may be impacted by this?
The affected area is really a combination of mule fat and willow that grows along the creek side. All of that will be replanted with a geogrid system with willow plantings and other native species. A planting plan will be developed for that. A biological assessment of the project has been completed, and it did not find any significant adverse long-term impacts. The short-term impacts would be those during construction and will be mitigated through this restoration plan that I mentioned.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Berger?
I assume the quitclaim deed would be after they do the repairs and everything?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, in fact, I would note that the Fish and Game conditions are extremely detailed and very extensive, and they certainly mitigated any concerns I might have had about any work in that area. One thing to note is that, for instance, they can't work on the site between March 1st and September 15th, so that limits your period. So you're going to have to time your construction pretty carefully then, huh? Okay. All righty. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll move staff recommendations 1, 2, and 3.
Seconded by Mr. Jacobson. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposition? All right, there we go. Good luck. Staff reports and announcements. Open space mapping project using ArcView Geographic Information System. Mr. Town.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff just wanted to mention this because we are quite enthusiastic about it. Cosca has hired a part-time management intern for the next 6 months. She started in March, and she's putting together a system of new layers for our open space system. So she is taking the information that we have, but building new information. Much of it is based on brand new GPS information that we are acquiring in the field. The result of this will be a series of maps that will depict not only our open space system in greater detail, but our entire trail system, features of the trail system in terms of ownership, names, maintenance responsibility, and so forth. It will also include topics such as fences, drainage improvements, and so forth. And we're very excited about it because it will give us a tool that we can apply to a number of different things we're doing right now, including open space planning and budget planning. So I anticipate that we'll be able to bring you some nice products from this at our September meeting. And again, I think you'll like what you see.
Very good. Will that be a good management tool, too, in terms of keeping track of?
It's very important. From a management standpoint, again, budget planning and so forth, it is part of a full inventory of all of the improvements in our open space, and that it will cover everything from signage to picnic tables. And there really are a lot of improvements in our open space system, literally hundreds, if not thousands. And this will finally give us a handle on those and their exact location.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes. Will this include the community, the Conejo Valley as a whole, or just that area which encompasses the open space?
This project is focusing on the open space. It's focusing on land that is designated as open space that may be owned by Cosca, the City of Thousand Oaks, or Conejo Recreation and Park District. I should note that we are working very closely with the Department of Public Works, which has GIS capabilities in their area of expertise, and also with the National Park Service. We're sharing information with them so that we're not reinventing the wheel and doing this as effectively and efficiently as possible.
I ask the question because we have had encroachment problems onto our park property from neighbors. They haven't caused significant problems, but could in the future, providing there is significant expenditure by the homeowner in making unauthorized improvements and what have you. When you mentioned the open space and the park district, you were referring only to the open space that is either controlled by or now with the park district, not the park district properties for recreation and so forth. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What I may do, unless Mr. Friedman has comment on this, is ask at one of our meetings whether or not we could in some manner piggyback on this type investigation in order to mesh in that type of information that you have with what our needs would be with the park district in order to become more knowledgeable and have that as a resource tool for our agency.
Yeah, I think I can comment. This was a limited term project for the consultant they're bringing on board, and I think in having met her and worked with Mark and Shelley, who I have to compliment on a great start to a good project. I certainly think that there would be an opportunity to have some additional GIS work done at sort of on a contract basis with the park district. It'll just be a matter of working those details out. We also have our park operational analyst, Bill Palermo, doing some GIS work on his own as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Town. Can we have a report on the 2006 Open Space Trails Education Days? Ms. Hardman, would you like to?
Hello. The event was a total success. We had some weather this year, and we're forced to leave Wildwood on a couple of the days, 2 out of the 5 days. But 19 schools participated, and upwards of 1,700 fifth graders, all very well behaved, of course. And as I mentioned, the weather on Wednesday and Thursday, we went to the Whole Access Trail at the end of Moore Park. We hiked the kids in from there to the Whole Access Trail. And that worked really well. We dodged apparently there was a lot of big downpours all around, but we got a little sprinkle on Wednesday, but it wasn't much. This year we had a change. Instead of having our assembly the previous week on a Wednesday at the Teen Center, we produced a video now which will be used year after year. Different schools have the video, and that was very well received, and students seem to remember some of the messages in the video. We had the usual presenters like the Cosca Ranger, can't think of his name right now, and Bruce, yes, thank you, and Oscar, who is one of the Shumash experts. And there was one message Elaine wanted me to say. Stay on the trail was one of the main messages apparently in the video, and the kids were actually saying that when they were down in Wildwood, to make sure you stay on the trail. And then actually I was down, I went Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and on Friday back at Wildwood we had a really exciting situation with a huge rattlesnake up where they have the trail etiquette skit. And the snake, it seemed like he wanted to come and be part of all the action. Elaine was wrangling him with a stick, trying to keep him away from going over to where all the kids were. But a couple of the groups of kids got to see an up close and personal rattlesnake, so that was very good.
Is that what you call a teaching moment?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I don't know who arranged for the snake, but it worked out pretty good. And then I personally think that maybe that wayward bear that was on his way to Tarjay, that showed up there on Friday, I think he might have been going by, because I heard someone say that perhaps he had used Wildwood from where he started out, Lang Ranch or North Ranch area, and made it over to Target area and Home Depot. So that for me is an exciting thought that maybe a bear was around. And then finally, the writing contest is in process and will be judging will be completed the week of May 23rd. And I suppose you'll hear about all the winners and all the great essays we take in. So.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Questions of Ms. Hardman?
I know that there were large logistical problems and others associated with the manner in which that had been presented in the past, but it always seemed to be very effective. Had you had feedback as to the effectiveness of this and whether or not, in its own way, it's communicating just as effectively as the old way in which we were communicating with the fifth graders?
You mean the video, the new video as opposed to
yes, since that's a substitution for all the transportation of students and the one-on-one contact through introduction to rangers and so forth.
Yeah, well, of course, they get to meet the rangers at the event in Wildwood. And some of the national and state rangers also, not just Cosca rangers. But Elaine was doing sort of and I think a few other people were doing a little informal quiz of the kids, just here and there asking the kids about the video. And most of them, as kids do, most of them, said, oh, yeah, it was great. But then there was always, a couple that said, yeah, it was all right, or, maybe a little bit of not so positive comments. But
I do think you're to be commended on this effort, because in discussing this at our conferences and what have you, no other district that I know of provides the same type of information covering an entire grade of students, and I think that it's very effective and shows the ability of our community people such as you in helping to introduce our young people to the cares and needs of the open space system.
Well, for years now, since I've been involved, at least going back a couple of years, I've had adults come up and comment, or somehow you just hear them say that they were fifth graders and had gone through the program and now came back as an adult parent chaperone, or perhaps a teacher or a teacher's aide. So it's, for years now, it's already come full circle with people coming back as adults. So we're raising a whole generation.
It's an institution.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think the schools and the kids really look forward to it. As the kids, once they hear about it, of course, getting out of school for having a field trip is always a good thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Hartman. And let the record reflect that Director Fox joined us at 7. If you want to come up. I'm good. You're good there. Okay, that's fine. Do we have any board member comments or reports? Claudia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am in receipt of the letter which was provided to us by Mark Town regarding the Brasher case, and I would like to know from Mr. Town how the conversation with Ms. Tempest went. Was she not aware that Cosca did not own any adjacent property to this particular project?
Yes, we did discuss that. I basically went through the history of the city's efforts and Cosca's efforts to protect land in the Skyline area. As I think the board is aware, the city has purchased about 60 parcels in that area. Almost all of them have been at tax sale. We're working on the purchase of 3 small parcels right now. But these have all been very inexpensive parcels, and they have tended to be the parcels on the uppermost portion of the slopes and the parcels all but existing open space on at least a couple sides, if not 3 sides. I think it's fair to summarize that in part, Ms. Tempest's concerns involve oak trees in the area, in addition to preserving as much land as we can in this particular part of Thousand Oaks. 2 specific parcels that she asked that we look at, we did. In fact, one of them I had investigated some time ago. Both of them are quite expensive. One was $300,000 and the other one was $75,000. To give the board some perspective, the 3 parcels that we're working on right now are approximately $30,000 per parcel for these small quarter-acre parcels. And these are parcels that have a lot of development constraints. They're, again, further up, water issues and access issues and so forth. But that was really the context of the conversation. I did, we went over aerial photographs together, and I indicated that this does not directly abut Cosca land. It does, as you know, abut an existing piece of developed property on the south and a vacant parcel now that's actually for sale on the north side, but then on the other side of that there's an existing house. So the subject land is also subject to brush clearance from these existing lots. So even down the road, we're looking at, even if it were to be acquired, that you would have that impact on the vegetation. So, I can sympathize with her concerns about the oak trees and so forth. But when you compare it to these other parcels that we've been looking at and have been acquiring, in fact, over the last 10 years in the Skyline area, it doesn't have the habitat, doesn't have the proximity to existing open space that the others do. And the two, again, that we looked at were quite expensive compared to the parcels that we bought in the past.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, the other question I have is just an observation that I would like to share with my colleagues, namely that in the 3.5 years or so that I've been on the board, as well as following some Cosca meetings previous years, I've noticed that the same board members or directors are nominated for vice chair and chair year after year after year without giving consideration to new members. And I would like to know why that is.
I think it's a function of, at the meeting, who nominates. So next year's elections, I would encourage you to make a nomination if you have a difference of opinion of who should be chair and vice chair.
I do understand that is the process. I just would like to hear from my colleagues as to why the same persons are being nominated over and over and over again for the last several years, whether it's no variety or something like that.
I appreciate being alerted to what I obviously knew but hadn't really been raised as an issue of concern to me. And since I've been on here for 10 or 15 years and haven't served as a nominated officer, possibly in the next election, I'll ask that I be considered for that. Thank you very much.
And I'll be very glad to address it. As far as the Park District end goes, it's just happened that way. There's been, I've been on 22 years, and I can't recall the original concept of having the public member as the chair has been discussed many times as kind of a disinterested third party as far as governmental agencies go. And that's always been my reasoning for feeling that the chair position is best served by the public member. But we can certainly discuss that at the time that nominations come up again.
Thank you. And this is in no way any criticism of Madam Chair serving, not at all. I'm just wondering I was curious as to the diversity of directors being nominated as chairs and vice chairs. Thank you.
Any other discussion or board member comments or reports? Hearing none, we will adjourn to our next scheduled meeting, which is Wednesday, July 12th. Thank you.